Official account.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Yeah. Huh.
You don't know what the answer was. You don't know what the answer was. I didn't read it either.
See, I refuse to take that money from developers or builders because I don't want to be in a position where something comes before me and I feel beholden to people. I'm not doing that. So that's why I pay for most of it myself. Well, it just gives the appearance to me. I mean, I just didn't want to do it. Everybody else can do what they want to do. We lost our clock. What did they do with our clock? Now we have no idea what time it is. Well, it had the right minutes, but the wrong hours. I don't know. Now we have more cameras spying on us.
That's so funny.
Well, they never could have to change that.
Folks, I'd like to welcome you to the St. Charles County Council meeting of Monday, March the 11th, 2024. We will begin the meeting with an invocation by Pastor Brad Aslan of Calvary Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Tim Baker. Please rise.
I want to say thank you for having me, Calvary Church in St. Peter's. We really appreciate the opportunity to partner with the county, and if we can be of service in any way, please let us know. We have thousands of people that come through our doors every week, and it is our pleasure to serve. Romans 13 talks about the civil responsibility of governments to care for people, so thank you, each and every one of you, for doing just that. Let's pray. Father, it is a unique opportunity that we have, a unique opportunity this evening to consider different things that impact the lives of many individuals on a daily basis. This is not a task that anyone here takes lightly. It is one that we believe that you have ordained and charged us the responsibility with. Lord, I pray for the meeting this evening, that you would grant guidance and wisdom to each individual, that you would provide clarity in speech, the ability to focus, that you would provide patience and understanding as different conversations are had and as different things are considered and deliberated upon. Lord, I pray that you bless each individual here, and Lord, this month we especially remember the sacrifice that you made on our behalf this Easter season. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Swanson.
Here, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel. Here. Councilman Elam.
Here.
Councilman Hollander.
Here.
Councilman Hammond.
Here.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Here.
Councilman Baker.
Here.
Okay. We will begin tonight with a public presentation on the Senior Real Estate Property Tax Relief Program. Michelle McBride, our Collector of Revenue, will answer some questions for the public.
Thank you. When we had our budget meeting, we talked about the extra position you granted. Nancy asked if I would come and give an update, and we launched the program on March 1st, so I thought today would be a good day to give you an update on what's been going on. Okay, let's see if this works. Beautiful. I always think it's important to remind people where and how things came about. The enabling legislation behind this, as you all know, was a Senate Bill 190 passed by the Missouri General Assembly last year during the 2023 session. And then you followed up and passed your own St. Charles County ordinance, which was ordinance number 2383 and is now known as Article 11, Seniors Property Tax Relief in our own county code. So the requirements of our ordinance are pretty simple. You have to be an eligible taxpayer, which means you have to be a St. Charles County resident on January 1st of the tax year. You have to be 62 years of age on January 1st of the tax year for which you're applying. You have to be the owner of record of the homestead, or you have to have a legal or equitable interest in such property as evidenced by a written instrument. That language is basically for trust, people who have their homes put in a trust, and so we would need a copy of the trust document showing that you have the legal responsibility to pay that tax. And the other one is that you're liable for the payment of real property taxes on such homestead, which the owner would be, or someone who is a trustee would be. The homestead is real property that is actually occupied by an eligible taxpayer as their primary residence. They have to be living there. So we've got several ways to apply. You can apply on your cell phone. If you do that, you can take pictures of your documents to attach. You can apply on a regular computer. If you have those documents saved as a digital format that maybe the recorder has emailed to you after you requested them, you can attach them. We have the drive-up drop box that you can put a completed paper application in, and we have a special designated locking drop box in the lobby because the information on these applications is closed to the Sunshine Law. So we wanted people to know that their information was secure when they were dropping it off here. So the online application process, go to collector.sccmo.org. Over on the left-hand side in the blue, you can see the Seniors Real Estate Property Tax Relief Program. You click on that, you get to a little online application. I'm going to say there's about 10 questions. I haven't counted them lately. Your name, your property identification number, which is right on your paid tax receipt from last year. Are you age 62 or older on January 1st of 2024? What's your mailing address? What's your phone number? If we have a problem with your application, we can't get in touch with you without a phone number or an email address. I don't have the whole application up there. You do have to attach proof of ID and ownership. ID is typically your driver's license, a passport, a government-issued ID showing your birth date, so that we know you really are 62 years old on January 1st. Proof of ownership. Generally, it's a warranty deed. They're 2 pages long. It might be a special limited warranty deed. Sometimes it could be a quitclaim deed. What it is not is a beneficiary deed. That beneficiary deed is only good once you die, so a beneficiary deed is not proof of ownership. A deed of release or a deed of trust, those are mortgage instruments. Those do not prove ownership. Generally, a warranty deed, some sort of special or limited warranty deed, might be a quitclaim deed. So the paper application very much mimics what the online application is, but you got to handwrite it in. And again, you have to attach proof of ID and age, proof of ownership, and legal liability to pay the tax. The Recorder of Deeds has a special email address, recordercopycenter@sccmo.org. Email them with your name and your property address, and they'll respond back to you. You can put the completed applications in the drive-up drop box on Monroe Street, or if you feel better putting them in the box, you can put them in our locking box in the lobby. If you really feel like you have to hand it over, you can walk it into the window clerks, but all they will do at this moment is take it. We are not reviewing them at the windows, we're reviewing in the order received. Okay, so status thus far. For March 1st through the 8th, we got all those paper applications there, plus a whole lot online. We've got approximately 4,637 applications. Online, as of last Friday, was 2,209. Today, that number is up to 23-something, I believe. Emailed, because we also have a special prop tax freeze at sccmo.org, where you can email your application, or if you know that you forgot to attach something, or you are hearing me speak and you say, oh, I submitted this deed and that's the wrong one, you can email the right one to proptaxfreeze@sccmo.org, and we will get those connected. The online application went live at 12:01 a.m. on March 1st, and we had our first one by 1:41 a.m. Somebody either had second shift and came home and applied, or they were waiting up just to see. First day, we had 15 paper applications, 18 emailed applications, and 375 online applications. So the word was out, people knew it was happening March 1st, and they jumped on board. What we know today, there's really 5 things. The application window opened March 1st. The application window closes on June 30th. The Missouri General Assembly is in session until May 17th. That means there could be changes to the law. There could be changes to the law that force changes to our ordinance. For those reasons, we will not be sending out certifications of credit eligibility until June, because we don't want to say, yes, you're eligible, and then have something crazy happen, and maybe the state decides, well, let's not go with 62, let's go with 67, and we've got all these people that we might have notified. So that is the reason we will not notify confirmation of eligibility until June. We will, as we review them, if there are problems, notify people. That's why the email address and the phone number are so important, because as we're reviewing these applications, if there are problems, we want to be able to get in touch with people and let them know what the problem is so they get to rectify it. Only the non-debt portion of the tax liability, including the state blind pension fund, is being frozen. And then I already mentioned number 5, the confirmations will start going out in June. We'll send rejection notices earlier so people can cure any deficiencies. So the biggest misunderstanding is my taxes will never increase again. Huge misunderstanding. 1, it only applies to the non-debt portion of the tax liability. What you can see if you go online right now today to stcharlesmocollector.com is a breakdown of the debt and non-debt. We did that to the 23 tax bills in anticipation of the property tax relief program being available this year. So people could see how much was debt, how much was non-debt. So anything that has a dash debt behind it is not frozen and will be calculated if there's a new assessed value and a new debt rate. Anything that has non-debt or has nothing behind it would be a frozen amount if somebody is eligible in 23 and they have applied for it for 24. So that's, if you are curious today, how much of my bill last year was debt and how much was non-debt, that's where you can go and look at it right now today.
Michelle, what is the difference exactly? Is it owed on the house, or is it if it's, I don't know what that means, debt or non-debt?
Debt or non-debt is the political subdivisions. The ambulance district has issued bonds to build houses,
I gotcha.
and those bonds were voted on by the people. So before the ambulance district issued those bonds financing their improvements, the voters said, yes, we will pay for that. So that's why the
So
not,
like
the
all
debt
school
portion,
bond issues and stuff like that, it
School
keeps
bond
increasing their
issues.
personal property taxes?
all of the, yes. The debt portion will not freeze, because that is a contract between the voters and the political entity who went and borrowed money, issued bonds, based on that vote. So that's why the debt portion is not frozen. We're not going to get involved in their finances. That would be outside the scope of what property tax relief allows us to do.
So in the case of a school district, when they say no tax increase bond issue.
When I see those
reality-
signs, I try to educate people.
In reality, you are paying more because it goes against your house. I
Your
got you.
tax bill may go up.
Okay.
A no tax rate increase bond issue means their general revenue tax rate will not increase. The debt rate is not, by technical definition, the debt rate is not part of the tax rate. So that's why they can say, no tax rate increase bond issue. It doesn't mean the tax bill will not go up. When you approve a bond issue, and sometimes they're needed. I'm not saying bond issues are bad. What I'm trying to do is educate the public when I talk about this, is that a no tax rate increase bond issue means it won't increase their general revenue rate. It definitely, if they issue bonds, is likely to increase their debt rate, which will increase your tax liability. There are a lot of terms that have been used and thrown around. People think, and I think that's my next slide, actually.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, may I interject just a minute? That issue came up at a hearing in Jefferson City about why we didn't include the debt, and Michelle's done a good job of explaining the legal, one of the legal reasons why we don't, and that is, the Constitution says we can't, there's something called tortious interference with contract. And yes, when people buy these bonds, there's a contract there, and we can't screw with the, whatever that was in place when that contract was made. Now, from what I've been told, the taxes that go to bonds in a district that's not building a lot of buildings isn't very high, and it might go up to what, 15 or 20% in a district that's growing. So it's 80% or 80 to 90%, I would say, is not impacted by this. But there's another reason I want you all to know, because we did a little more research, and I talked to some of the people who do finance with the schools. There is actually a statute, and the rate for the bonds, okay? The Hancock Amendment requires that if you want to raise your taxes, you have to vote on it, except for bonds. if for some reason your revenue isn't enough to pay the bonds, the political subdivision can raise the taxes without even going and asking the people. And that's, Mr. Brazel's question is a good one. When they say it's a no tax bond issue, that's true. Unless something really drastic happens and they have a big decline, in which case, then they don't even have to go ask you. They can raise it automatically. So again, the legislature realized that, again, this was a contract, treats it differently than others. And the irony of that, of course, is, we don't want to create a situation where jurisdictions actually go out and raise taxes without a vote of the people, because then they're just going to put the more burden on the people who aren't getting the freeze. But continue.
Yeah, Mr. Hammond has a question.
Yeah, I don't even understand why you need a warranty deed, and I'm going to explain that. I went looking for mine this morning, and I couldn't find it. So I drove down to the county and entered in the logs, and it didn't take too long, probably I'd say half an hour to go up there, and it took her less than a minute to produce my deed.
I have 10 staff members.
So,
So if someone produces a complete application, it's much easier to review and approve than it is to go pull a deed copy. And you have to have login access to those deeds, and you have to know how to research those deeds, which is what the Recorder of Deeds office does. So, but they too also only have 15 employees. So
I still don't understand why
when you submit your income taxes,
If,
do you submit your W-2?
no,
If you're filing electronically, no, but if you're filing on paper, you do.
yeah.
Even though the IRS gets copies of the W-2s. It's because the review process takes time, and every task you add to the review process extends the amount of processing time to get that through.
Yeah. So there was a whole lot of people down there, and they weren't real happy, waiting in line to get a copy of their warranty deed. And so I wish there was a way we could eliminate that if, if I just had to send in my copy of my driver's license and the application and $3, which it cost me for a copy.
Who's going to look all that up? And who's going to be responsible for matching it all up?
Well, who's
It
doing
should be the person who's benefiting.
I disagree with that. It's not government, it's the government's job is to do what's best for the people who voted people in. And making it harder on seniors is not benefiting them at all, because I'm not a computer person either.
That's
I
a
know exactly
requirement
what
by
he's talking
legal.
about.
That
It's
was a requirement. We had many, many discussions on this, and it was determined by legal that it is important for the application to come in complete with proof of identification and proof of ownership.
Did we do that, or did you do? I'm just asking a question.
It's in the ordinance.
So we could change it. We could change it, Dave. I agree. I think it needs to be examined, because that seems like an awful lot of paperwork that these folks got to do. And the other thing is, what I don't understand, what I'm getting a lot of complaints on, is why do they got to do it every year? Their age isn't going to get younger, so why do they?
How do I know you're still alive?
How do we know if they're still alive?
How do I know if you're still alive?
When the
If
house
you
was
don't
sold,
reapply?
Wouldn't the house
Oh,
sell?
I know many houses that are in mom and dad's names. Many houses that are in mom and dad's names.
I don't know, it's something to think about, but it's just a pain in the butt, because you don't remember stuff like that every year. Oh, I gotta go fill out my application once again.
You fill out your personal property assessment form by March 1st, what you owned on January 1st. You file your income taxes April 15th. You file your senior property tax relief, if you want to, by June 30th. You pay your property taxes by December 31st. There are certain dates that you know as an adult, as a citizen of a state or a county or a country, there are certain obligations we have that we have to do as individuals.
So how many applications have you had so far?
About 5,000. I have 10 staff members. I'm short 2 right now, and we haven't been able to start reviewing any. We will get to it. We've got processes put in place, but Now you're saying that my staff should go do the research and find all the deeds. And yet, I was told I couldn't have more employees. So just trying to be realistic here, the best way, if you want this program to be able to make it this year and to see full fruition, is to go through with it as it was originally designed and look at what tweaks need to be made. I'm not saying we may not revise some of it next year. I'm just saying that for this year, it would be quite unfair to those 5,000 people who've already applied and done what they were required to do to change the game.
I agree with that. I do agree with that, and I think it being the first time, you gotta kind of see how it works.
No.
But I think it's got some hiccups.
No.
Well,
correct
I'm
me
not
if-
saying it doesn't. I'm just saying that we
Yeah.
need to work it through a whole
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
process
I agree.
to know what all those hiccups are and not just Band-Aid.
I agree, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you mention that when you went to the recorder, it only took a minute or two? Is that right?
It took less than a minute for her to get a copy of my
For the,
deed.
at the recorder's office?
Well, it was down in the lobby. I don't
At the
know.
recorder's office.
At the recorder's office.
At the recorder's
Yeah.
office, not the collector's office.
And that can be done, as you mentioned, that can be done by email, right?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I understand some of the seniors who are applying for this may not be that computer savvy or may not prefer to do things online. Many of them do have children or even grandchildren who would be more than happy to assist. This first time through, we're going to have to work through it and see what the kinks are.
Councilman, one thing that I'd like to mention too is the fact that when we got into this process, Matthew Seeds in the IS department put some demographic information together from a couple of different sources, and we could see somewhere in the area potentially of 38,000 applications by the time this season is over. So you're talking about a formidable amount of paper shuffling.
So would that be, Bob, give or take a few numbers, if it's 38,000, it'd be 38,000 every year, right? I mean, if you gotta reapply.
Correct. The reapplication process, though, Michelle, you can vet my response here, but the reapplication process, once someone has done it, should be easier, correct?
If you got a deed this year, I would make a copy of it and keep it somewhere.
Yeah.
I'd take a picture with my cell phone. You shouldn't have to go get another copy of your deed. I realize I'm a paper person. I can go home and I can put my hand on my deed right now. My 35-year-old son, who is not a paper person, does know exactly where his closing pouch is from his house. So he knows where to go home and find it. So that's one of those documents that's kind of like your social security card, your driver's license. If you're a homeowner, it's an important document.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
may I inquire?
sure.
I thought when we were talking about this earlier, something was said, and I remember anyway, that after the first year, it's all you'd have to do is fill out a form that says nothing's changed.
That was discussed in several meetings with legal counsel in the room, and we decided at that time that no, right now, at this point, we're going to tell people they'll need to reapply every year, and that way they will hold on to their documents and maybe have them more accessible next year. Because again, just because a box is checked, anybody can check a
That's not what I was
box.
anticipating. I don't know about the people on the council, and I don't know if we wrote it in such a way that we made that clear.
But again, we're not even through the first season yet, so I
Okay.
don't think that decision is.
Well, that's something we need to talk about. But
That's
yeah,
right,
I've been telling people, it may be,
That's right.
it may be a little difficult first year, but it should be real easy after that. I hereby certify that the information I gave you in 19 or 2024 is still correct. You sign it, send it in.
And I'll be
And
happy to
we'll
look
talk
at
more
that
about
after we get through year one.
We'll talk more about
We
it.
need to get through 1 year of this and see where we're at. So the other misunderstandings, besides my taxes will never go up, are that the tax rates are frozen. That's inaccurate. Another one is that my assessed value is frozen. That is inaccurate. What is frozen is the tax liability. And what the tax liability is the actual dollars paid for the ad valorem taxes. Tax liability basically is the assessed value divided by 100 times the tax rate. So people need to remember that assessed values aren't certified by the assessor until June 30th. County Board of Equalization closes the second Monday of July, so if anybody has appealed to the County Board of Equalization, their assessment may not be set until July. And then if they're not happy with what happens at the Board of Equalization, they can file with the State Tax Commission. So assessed values aren't set till much later in the year. And it can take until October 31st for the state auditor to get us tax rates. All of this is to basically say, at this point in time, there's no way to calculate what your credit might be. We don't know what your taxes might be. So how could we compare this year's taxes to last year's taxes? 24 tax bills will get generated in November. Because again, we don't have to get, by law, it could take until October 31st to get tax rates.
Yeah, I think that's just going to confuse people even more, what you're saying, so
I'm trying to share the facts.
yeah.
And they're not simple. The facts are complicated. So I apologize for the complexity of it. The way this was done by the state legislature, and then you had to follow suit, made it very complex for the average human being to follow. So, things to remember. It only applies to the primary residence. We've already had calls. What about my rental property? What about my business? No, we've been telling you since the get-go, your primary residence. You can only have one primary residence. Can only be claimed in one county, state, nation, or country. Well, can I take this on my house in Florida and here? No, you cannot. And I have a folder of people who claimed it in Florida already for 2024. So let's be careful. Let's claim it only in one place. Only one of the owners needs to be age 62 or older on January 1st. That comes up quite frequently. You might have a couple where one of them is 63 and one of them is 59. Only the 63-year-old would apply because it's jointly titled property. He is or she is a primary owner. They are eligible to apply. If both owners are 62 or older on January 1, still only one need apply. You're not going to get two credits. It's going to be one credit on the property tax bill, so only one owner need apply and provide proof of valid ID. ID must be valid. We have actually had a caller that said, is it okay if I send in my expired driver's license copy? This is what we get. The credit amounts cannot be computed until 2024 bills are out. I've mentioned we've got minimal staff at both offices, so we appreciate when people are pleasant and kind. They are working as quickly as they can, and they want to do what they can for you. Sometimes they're limited. My staff does not have login access to the recorder system. That would be a violation of segregation of duties. So you have to have some of that separation. I'm happy to entertain questions from the council. I'm just going to show this if I can. I don't know if this will go up over that. Powers to be in the back. Okay. It's probably pretty tiny, but every year, you may or may not realize that I have seen the debt versus the non-debt. And so this is what we have every year, and this year it became important for the public to see that. So we actually entered those various rates. Something else that I brought along to show when this credit is going to make a difference. 23 was a reassessment year, so almost everybody in the county's property values went up. If you look at the change in tax rates, from a non-reassessment year to a reassessment year, things happened properly from 22 to 23. Almost all the tax rates either stayed the same or went down. All of the green is where the tax rates decreased. When you go from a reassessment year like 2021 to a non-reassessment year, 2022, you see a little bit different. So 2024 will be comparable to 2022 as far as what is likely to happen. So all of the yellows up there were increases, the greens were decreases, so that yellow would mean that portion of the tax bill would not change for the non-debt.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Dan Clark.
sure.
Michelle, have you come across anybody from the Portage or St. Charles Commons yet?
Literally, we have been accepting the applications, date stamping them in, and
Okay.
putting them in order to get,
And the key,
to
though,
review
but the
it.
key, though, is that they pay the taxes. Because, you know, the Portage Commons, St. Charles Commons go back to 1835. Originally, they were done during Spanish colonial times. In 1835, the state legislature said, okay, those commons belong to the city. In St. Charles, they went ahead and just gave the leaseholder a fee simple deed if they came and asked for it. But there's still some people out there where the property's been in the same family for over 100 years that probably don't have a deed. In Portage, they didn't do that. They continued to collect a rent. If you live in the Portage Commons, you don't have a fee simple title. You have a leasehold.
So you don't have
But the lease
ownership.
requires them to pay the taxes. So when somebody comes in, check with the lawyers. It's
Oh, we
kind
will.
of complicated.
My
Yeah.
lawyer's on my speed dial.
Yeah, but they can't bring you, because I tried to, I worked on this when I was a private attorney. Okay, thank you. I know you got a tough job.
Yes, you do. Thank you. I think we're in a situation now where, you know, everybody was, you know, a lot of euphoria when we passed this, okay? And now the reality is setting in that people are going to benefit, but there's going to be a little bit of work associated with it. And I think the end result is I think some people are going to be disappointed because they're expecting more tax relief than maybe
They'll
is
see the
actually
first
there.
year, yes.
But we'll deal with that as we go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just while we're on this, Rory and I went up and testified for the bill to fix this. And then we met with Senator Luetkemeyer, who's a sponsor. He actually called and asked Rory to come up, was it last week?
Last Monday.
Last Monday. So he was there all day, the day where they perfected this. And if you have any questions about what's going on in Jefferson City, we could try to answer them. If we can't, we can try to get you one of the things that I talked about, one of the questions I had is while they're fixing this, they ought to deal with what happens if your tax bill goes down. Because as you all know, the real estate market's been crazy the last 2 or 3 years. So everybody got a big bump. If that market goes back to something like normal, you might actually have people get their taxes frozen and then 2 years later, they're actually paying less. So, you know, do you have to reapply? There's just a lot of things that are gonna come up, and they're gonna do a fix this year, and my prediction is they'll have to go back next year, because they'll find some more things that they hadn't thought of.
All right. We will now move on to public comments. Just a reminder on public comments to please fill out a speaker card, and you will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will begin. Laurie?
Martin Maxey for Bill number 5270, Duello and Hopewell Road.
Hello. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it, and all the neighbors appreciate your guys' time with this. Right here is a tree line here, and we all kind of relied on this tree line. I don't know why we all did, but us with 10 kids that I count from just the neighbors right here, we did. And they're expanding the road, and you guys are talking about getting a stoplight up there, which I think is a good idea. But I'm just a little bit afraid when people come through the stoplight trying to make the light, that they're going to be rushing through the stoplight and come down this turn right here. This is going, over here is my house. It's a downhill turn. And I was wondering if there can just be a barrier or a privacy fence of some sort to warn people, because it's about an 8-foot drop off at my yard, and it goes down to about 3 feet and some of the other neighbors. But here's a picture. Right now there is not just trees but a dirt pile, but you know, they're going to raise up the road so they can have more space to build the road and the sidewalk and everything. And I really think that something like that would help, especially the situation of the stoplight. I'm not against the stoplight at all, but I'm just saying it probably is going to have a few people rushing this downhill turn too quickly. And here's a picture of the trees. And like I said, pretty much all of us, you see how young we are. We all have kids, little kids that are running around. And I don't think that with where we live that's too much to ask for, is just like a privacy fence and something as a barrier to show that there's something coming up around this corner. Because if there would be people that would get their tire off on this 8-foot incline in the back of my yard, or one of the other neighbors, they ain't gonna correct. They're going into our yard. There's no doubt about that. So I hope you guys consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Regarding lobbyist, Proposition County sales tax, and death in custody, Arnie Dienoff.
Thank you very much, members of council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, running for college trustee on April 2nd. First of all, on the agenda, under facilities, with the services for HVAC, be nice if we had, it's a multi-year contract, and how long that contract will be. On the waste hauling or disposing services, it's a 5-year contract. I was really shocked at the $181 price tag. So it'd be kind of nice if we wrote on the agenda how many years the contract is, so there's no question. This fancy item that citizens are decrying of county government wasting taxpayer money to pass a proposition and violating Missouri ethics laws is unbelievable. I'm making a request under Chapter 610 of RSMO of how many copies were made, the cost of the composing, printing of this 8-page brochure, and the cost of postage. And basically, you're baiting the voter and telling a bunch of things that I don't agree with, especially these big, huge pictures. And why not form a election committee with compliance with the Missouri Ethics Commission and Chapter 130 and 105 of the state statutes? There's no disclaimer of who is paid for by. Also on your agenda, buying 16 vehicles, Chevy Tahoes, from Don Brown Chevrolet, that's in the city of St. Louis. We're not adding to our economy out here in St. Charles County. Doesn't make any sense. Board of Adjustment, John Madlock, he's also a member of the County Board of Equalization and is paid a handsome salary. That's just too much power for one person. And I also would like to make a public information request under 610 RSMO about our $250,000 lobbyists. Again, we haven't seen any written information or emails that's sent to county elected officials exactly what they're doing for our $250,000 in taxpayer money in Jefferson City. Plus, we're paying for all their expenses, and that's quite concerning. Now, I'm calling for an investigation, not of the St. Louis County Police, but of the Missouri Highway Patrol. This past Thursday, teen dies at St. Charles County Jail. Mom says he didn't get his medications. And I'm calling for that investigation for a nonpartisan investigation. I'm standing up for the Calhoun and Davis families who still haven't had answers from county government, and no one from the county has said they're sorry. A 17-year-old boy found dead at St. Charles County Juvenile Detention Center this week, which was last Thursday, March 7th, nearly 2 weeks without his medications that he needed to treat his epilepsy and other health conditions. And that's very concerning, and I would imagine it'd be very concerning to you as elected officials, and I ask you asking important questions.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Anyone else, Laurie?
Final speaker.
Okay. All right, seeing no more public comment, we move on to the oral report from the county executive.
I have no oral report, but I would like to make some comments when you get to the information that I sent everybody today.
All right,
Oh, Joanne suggested, just, I think most of you know this, under state statute, we have to provide a building and pay the employees at the Juvenile Justice Center, but they are totally under the control of the court. So it's the judges who, tell the people tell our employees how to do their job. And generally, I think they've always done a good job, and I'm not going to judge this on the basis of what I read in the Post-Dispatch. There will be a full investigation on what exactly happened.
Okay. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. Is there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, the under miscellaneous.
Okay, specifically.
I thought there was just one under miscellaneous, isn't there, on the back page, top? The highway, the change order with Oates and Associates?
I think they're asking, did you also want to remove the findings of fact and conclusions of law in Bill 5266?
For community development.
No, not that one, I'm sorry, just the highway one.
Just the highway one, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay, that will be removed, and we will discuss that later. Is there,
Motion to approve is amended.
okay?
Second.
Okay. Those all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda has passed, with the exception of the item that Mr. Baker has asked to be removed. Okay? Mr. Baker?
Yeah, John, it seems like every week, or every time we're up here, we're getting change orders because of utilities. I'm having a hard time understanding why this is continuing to be an issue. I mean, this sounds like poor project management by your staff.
Actually, this one isn't a change from a utility.
That's what it says in the ordinance.
Well, it mentions checking conflicts, but it wasn't for existing work. We actually added work, and as part of that, you have to double check the
Because
existing
it says
utilities.
it's due to a Missouri gas pipeline, which these utilities are always, or at least they should be known before we start design.
Right. This addendum is actually to add streetlights. And so there were no streetlights in the original design.
So then this write-up is incorrect?
No, it's correct. We have to check, part of the adding of the utility, the new streetlights and the associated infrastructure that goes with them is obviously checking the conflicts for the other utilities that are in the area.
Was streetlights not part of the original contract? Why was that?
Well, I mean, so streetlights aren't required in, rural settings or roundabouts necessarily. So the original design did not have them in them. As we were doing review, we thought it would be better for public safety to include streetlights at those locations, so we added them. Since there wasn't existing lighting there, it doesn't have any conflicts with the existing design. Nothing in the design is actually changing. So we're not duplicating any work, we're not having to redo anything, we're simply just adding some more plan sheets, adding in a design that wasn't there originally on top of what was there. So in sense, if we had bid this with lighting the first time, we expect the prices would have been the same as what we're currently proposing.
Being an engineer, I doubt that the price would be the same, but I've had engineers tell me that's how they make money is change orders, so.
Well, talking to Oates, they said that regardless, they would have been using an outside consultant. So they're not doing the design, they're just doing their standard, whatever it's costing them plus whatever their markup's going to be, typical to anyone who uses a subcontractor, so.
Then, I guess, we went through design and then determined that streetlights were required. It just seems like that's something that, if you have a kickoff meeting, that's discussed at that time? I mean, so.
Well, it's not so much that
we're
they
not
were
spending-
required, we just decided that we wanted them. I mean, we thought that they'd be better, we'd be
It'd
better
been
off
cheaper
with
if we
them.
would have said we wanted it at the beginning, though, in my opinion, but, okay, I mean, it just seems like every week we're up here, we're approving another change order from something that, on items that I think are really, not unnecessary, but it's unfortunate that we're getting it this late in the game, because I can guarantee you if streetlights were included in the original contract, it wouldn't be $37,000 of it. And if you'd asked them to take the lighting out, they wouldn't give you a credit of $37,000. But that's my opinion, so. I just ask that we be more careful. I mean, we're up here, you know, we're responsible for the budget, and getting these every 2 weeks when we're having a meeting, it's disheartening, because, you know, we've got money that's needed all over the county, especially stormwater, and you know, and we have nothing for it, and then we spend another $37,000 for a change order, which I think could have been avoided, so.
No, you're also talking about, I mean, different pots of money too.
I understand.
I can't use this money for stormwater.
I understand, but it's all money that we're up here in charge of administrating.
Terry?
Right. Yes.
John?
Yep.
On this extra work order, how do you know, back to Tim's point, that this $37,000 is a fair number? How do you know that?
Well, I mean, my staff reviewed it based on other designs that they've done in the past for streetlights. They felt it was a fair number. Chris Bostic is usually the one that does that, and he's usually really good about getting those numbers as low as they can possibly get. He's really good with the number crunching on that. So if he says this is a fair number, I'm confident it is.
Well, I mean, I agree with Tim, though, that we do get a lot of these extra work orders, and there's no question about it, the contractors really make their profits, high profits on extra work orders. I mean, that's just a business, and I don't think it's good business sense for the county to have these coming up all the time. I just don't. And I get it, I understand, I do know stuff happens, and sometimes plans change, I get it, but we gotta be a little more careful.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to accept addendum number 2, Oates Associate Interstate Drive Improvements?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. We move now to bills for final passage, beginning with bill number 5270.
Bill number 5270, an ordinance approving an agreement with Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for preliminary and construction engineering funding for improvements needed to reduce congestion on the improvement of Route N at the intersection of Route N at Hopewell Road, Duello Road.
Okay.
Terry?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill number 5270 with substitute Bill number 5270, which includes the language providing for a site-proof fence along Duello Road at the Brookside subdivision.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. There has been a substitute bill that basically is adding a fence to this particular project. Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Well, first, I need to just, okay, wait.
What is the difference, the price difference, from doing what, because I believe last time we talked, he was going to have a guardrail that was part of this. John, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about this or not. Mr. Elman, maybe.
Mr. Chairman, may I answer his question?
Yes.
John and I visited with this right after the last meeting and everything. And of course, the problem is he was going to look and see if we could do the guardrail. We certainly can do the guardrail to protect the drivers. The legal question is whether you can build a fence just for the benefit of the property owners. I don't know. Mr. Baker, do you know how much it will cost?
No, I mean, I don't know the cost. I could determine that just real quick.
I know.
But, you know, I mean, like I mentioned, the Highway Department, Missouri Department of Transportation, I know it was talked about sound fences, sound barriers.
Right.
And I'm going to go back to when Eagle Pines, which is a subdivision off Hemseth Road, came in, and those people, it was a brand-new subdivision, they were upset that Page Avenue was coming. It was, even though it was talked about for 20 years. So what they did is they came to the city. I was a public works director at the time. They came to the city of St. Charles and said, we want this sound barrier. And they said, well, it doesn't warrant it. They said, I don't care. Well, the city and MoDOT agreed to pay for these things. So it's something that I think precedent has been there. I mean, yeah, the fence isn't going to stop a car, but it's also going to give these folks some visual barrier. And I do think a guardrail is necessary too, just from the slope. I mean, all we need is just one accident down there and a kid's playing and the top, then what?
So I follow up on that, because I haven't seen the substitute, so I don't know what you're actually calling for. Because I would think, like from what he's talking about, he's got a safety issue and the folks along the road have a safety issue. Generally, I would think a guardrail would be a better safety issue than a privacy fence. Privacy fence is different. Privacy fence would give you privacy from the cars on the road, but a car would go straight through that and end up in their backyard like he's talking about, or possibly in their house. A guardrail, I would think, would stop the car. So if safety is the concern, which sounds like what they're talking about, a guardrail would be a better safety provision than a fence. But is your substitute calling for a guardrail and a fence?
I could certainly make that, no, it doesn't, but, you know, if that's
You
something.
just said that, that's why I'm asking.
No, it's not asking for a guardrail, but, I mean, it's not a bad idea. I mean.
So can you help me understand exactly what your substitute is calling for?
A 6-foot-high vinyl privacy fence. I mean, those fences, you can still make it to where it's somewhat traffic rated, to where it may not stop a car going 60 miles an hour, but you can make those fence posts where it's gonna deter or slow down the vehicle, if anything. So, I mean, that's something that's out there. I mean, there's traffic rated fences.
Terry?
Yes, Mr.
From what I understand, what I understood is from the highway standards, John, forget about the fence right now. You would have to have a guardrail up there anyway, wouldn't you, because of the slope? Isn't that one of the highway standards?
There's enough clear area with the sidewalk, or not sidewalk, with the pathway. And I don't know if you've looked at an aerial photo of that area, but there's a pretty large open space as you come around the curve. Mr. Maxey's house is right at the tail end of the curve where it kind of starts to narrow up. But technically, the clear space has been met, so no guardrail is required.
Well, to answer, Tim, I was under the impression it would be a guardrail and then a privacy fence. And a privacy fence also, MoDOT and stuff, they'll put up those screenings on fences on 70. They put some kind of canvas on them or something to keep the headlights from, and because they're going to be constantly getting headlights around it in their back windows, which is another major annoyance. And the other thing that we've talked about for years, guys, is I don't understand in this county why we got to tear all the trees down. I mean, like you go to like these other nicer places like Clayton and Frontenac and all that. We've had this conversation before. Why do we got to widen all the roads and tear all the trees down? Why don't we just leave the trees and improve the intersection, put the lights in, do the lights? Because a lot of those really nice subdivisions, that's what they do. They don't start widening and making boulevards out of them. They leave them looking like country roads and they leave the trees on the side. If we left the trees on the side, it would serve as a guardrail and as protection and look really great. That's what I don't understand why we do that. I don't know why we just plow everything over. I don't get that. And we've had that conversation. We had the same conversation on Hepperman Road. Had all those beautiful oak trees. And we're like, why do you got to slope it back so far? And why do you got to cut all the trees down? Just make it look like a country road. And that's my position. And you'd save a lot more money and it'll look a lot better.
On Dwello, we're actually right up against the right-of-way line. I mean, we're having to put in a wall just to get in what we need to get in. So we're not sloping anything back in this case. We're essentially building up to the edge of the right-of-way and going straight down.
Mr. Hammond.
How many of you want a fence? So that answers the question. They want a fence. And we're taking down all these trees that gave them some, it kind of shielded them from all the headlights and stuff, and we're not going to put anything back. I think they deserve to have a fence put in.
Yes, Mr. Swanson.
Okay, so we're asking to vote right now on a substitute that has no numbers attached to it. This is through CMAQ funding. CMAQ funding, we have over $700,000 coming from federal. It's about $173,000 coming from county. And you're asking me to vote on something that we have no idea what the cost is, type of fencing or anything else. And this is billed for final passage. Hold on, let me finish. And this is billed for final passage. I cannot vote for this at all because I have no idea what the numbers are. You were just complaining about spending an extra $30,000 on stoplights or lights, and now you're asking me to vote for something I have no idea what the cost is?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. Now, if you want to make a motion to table to bring back more information so we can see what the amended motion is, I'd be in favor of that, but I cannot vote for something I have no idea what the cost is. especially dealing with CMAQ funding, and I don't know how that works out.
Amanda,
A little bit of a joke.
yeah, Amanda, come on up.
So, yeah, this is actually for the, and like you said, this is a program agreement to get money from MoDOT to put a signal at an intersection that everybody is begging for a signal at. So there are two separate projects here. Yes, County Highway is improving Dwello Road just to the north. This is just the signal, and really adding a fence is out of the scope of this project. If we want to go back on the design, on County Highway's contract and figure something out, the road board is, I mean, that's coming out of my budget. I'm okay with discussing options. I don't know what those options are. The trees are in the right of way of the county. It's a hard line to make. But yes, this bill is for the intersection, and we would like to get started on designing that signal as soon as possible, because it's a problem and it's been noted to be a problem with a lot of people. I've heard from Mr. Brazel about getting a signal there, and I would like to keep that moving.
So to finalize my statement real quick, I know in my subdivision, you guys have an HOA. We had a whole bunch of homes up against Highway 61. We had a lot of traffic issues, no barrier between the homes. The HOA actually ponied up. We bought White Pines, and we put them in through our HOA through private funds. We maintain them and all, because it's kind of our common area in the zone. You guys pay into it. Have you guys looked and researched into your HOA helping out? I know we can't go back and forth at this moment. We can't go back and forth, but that's something that I think that should be looked at before we just open up the purses of the county to put something in with no numbers.
Well, you're
that's all I
looking
have to
at,
say.
what, $20,000 for a 6-foot vinyl fence to run along there? It's not big numbers.
It's not big numbers.
Councilman Hammond, we don't have, Mr. Baker is talking about all kinds of different fencing options.
No,
We have nothing in front of us.
I'm not talking about all, there's one fence option in here. It's a 6-foot gray vinyl site-proof fence.
But then you start talking about barriers to stop vehicles and everything else, so.
No,
Talk
that
to
was
him-
mentioned by Mr. Elam, Councilman Elam, about a guardrail.
Well, so right now, we don't know what we're talking about, and we're looking to pass something. I don't think it's a good idea.
Mr. Ela?
I was just going to go back to Amanda and saying, just so I understand, what is actually before us is a traffic signal. It has nothing to do with the roadway that these folks are concerned about, so it's two different things. So I'm asking you, is there a way that they can get done what they want to get done at a separate avenue rather than this, so we can get you the traffic signal that Mr. Brazel has been asking for? I mean, he's got the pictures showing the accidents. Obviously, that traffic signal is needed. You've shown us those pictures 3 times. So obviously, that intersection is a dangerous intersection, which I think warrants why we're trying to get you the traffic signal.
Yes. Yeah, and I think if we start design, we can look at that, and we can see what might actually mitigate the issues with the signal versus the issues with the widening of the road, and come up with a solution that works without just adding it to a program agreement,
This
which
issue's
is.
been looked at by engineers in the highway department, and they didn't want it. I think that at the time, they cut off conversations with the property owners
Stay up.
when they were wanting to do that back originally, and I think it had more to do with personality conflict with this particular individual than not wanting to give in to the residents who are losing their trees. They're losing one of the things that they bought those lots for, and for us to not. Yeah, you want to know the cost? I can give you the cost, but it's not my job to provide a cost for a fence.
It is if you're putting it in a substitute build.
Can we,
That's-
can I make a suggestion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we'll go county
May I
executive.
inquire of Amanda?
We'll come back to you. Yes.
Okay, Amanda, my concern isn't about the $20,000 for this. My concern is how many other projects do we have like this? Must have been 30, 40 years ago, we started having subdivisions where the backyards were up against the lettered routes and whatever. And I'm thinking right now, Highway B down in Boshertown. You've got, it's right with all those backyards there. Now, if we widen that someday, will the highway department, Mr. Baker mentioned the Page Avenue extension, which was, 5-6 lane highway, which today, federal law would require MoDOT to build a sound wall.
If it meets if it meets the
So many
requirements.
decibels.
It's all FHWA regulated.
So
That
many-
is a
so many
totally different thing.
decibels. Okay, is there any way that this project, when it's finished, will meet that decibel requirement on a
No.
5-lane? Okay. So has MoDOT ever agreed to do this for anybody other than the example Mr. Baker had? Do you know, that you know of?
No, I mean, the fence along the highway is purely to be there to keep people from getting on the interstate from the outer roads. And sound walls, again, they meet a reasonable and feasible requirement. That's why they don't go in where it's not very dense, because you can't build them if there's not a lot of houses there. They also have to meet a decibel requirement. Yeah, there's all kinds of regulation around that.
But again, okay, maybe you could do some research, how many other situations do we have out there right now where, where we've gone ahead and widened the highway, it's right up against somebody's backyard now, it didn't used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was some way we could move it all over, but that's
Yeah.
not possible, but that's not even in this contract, right?
No,
This
this-
contract's about
The
Duello
signal.
Road and the light.
Yes.
But we don't have a mechanism. I mean, you're not coming up here giving us we're not able to vote on the design changes associated with the Duello Road improvement. That would never come to us. So we have no other mechanism to put in this fence.
Well, you could have a separate, you could go ahead and put an ordinance, discuss it.
Well, then let's do that.
If it
then.
was
That's
already
what-
funded, can we do that? That other job's already been, it's designed and funded, right?
It's it's being designed now.
It's been
Design's
designed, I
being
mean, I don't
finished
think
up.
we're gonna we could ask MoDOT, I don't think they're gonna pay half of it. I'm just concerned about the precedent and how many more other groups of people. And I understand, and, it's a shame that they can't leave half those trees or something. But I'm just concerned, not about this is a small amount of money, as Mr. Baker suggested, but how many more other situations are we gonna have just like this? And if we never have any more, that'd be great. I don't know.
I mean, I've worked on a lot of roadway projects, and they're all unique, and I would say this one is unique with the topography of where these lots are, the improvements that they're doing, they're raising the road, it's dangerous. I mean, if anything, a guardrail's needed for sure, and I'm just surprised that doesn't meet warrants for that, so.
Tim, why don't we do this? If Mr. Swanson wants to see numbers, I think that's a fair, even some of the
Sure.
other council members, maybe we table it. I agree with you though, because if we don't keep it in this ordinance, then we lose control over doing something. I kind of feel that way. I could be wrong, but I think that maybe you come back, we put some numbers on it that says not to exceed or something like that, so we have more of an
Well,
idea.
we can separate and just do a complete ordinance and take it out of.
Yeah, I
take
think
it out of
I
this.
think that complete ordinance to the Hopewell expansion would be better than, because right now, Amanda's telling us that we need to get going on this stoplight.
All right.
Okay, so at this point, sure.
Isn't CMAQ federal funding?
Yes.
So we can't, I just think we are going to gum up the works big time if we use a CMAQ MHTC project to try and put a 23 or whatever vinyl fence in, which I don't like vinyl fences because they look like crap and they fall apart all the time. They get brittle and they just fall apart. I'd rather get you a better solution than a vinyl fence, but I'm not going to quibble about that right now. I would just like to pass the stoplight so we can get the stoplight done, and then we can come back, and once we think through what is the best solution and work with Road Board and Highway to get a better solution for them, I think they need a solution. I think that's fair. I don't think this is the avenue to get it there, and I would like to get the stoplight done because, like I said, he showed me the pictures 3 times of people busted up cars at an intersection. Obviously, it's a trouble. It's a problem. And if we slow down traffic there, hopefully that slows it down to go by his house, and maybe a guardrail is enough. Maybe it is a fence. I don't know. But I don't know enough about the fence, and I would think a vinyl fence is going to put a car right in the back of his house from the way that he's talking about it. So I don't see a vinyl fence as a deterrent, and I want to see the cost breakdown between a guardrail, a fence, and all of that before I vote for anything, and I don't want to mix it into a federal funding source. So I'm against that, and I would request that we remove the revised bill that is on the floor right now and go back and do a straight up and down vote on 5270 as originally proposed.
Okay, well, first of all, just let's take a look at the legislative process here. We have a bill, amended bill, entered substitute bill, asked for by Mr. Baker. It has been seconded. So I believe at this point, the first thing that we need to do would be to vote on that.
Unless he would be willing to remove it.
That is correct.
I'd be willing to remove it, as long as we as a body continue this discussion on what is needed at that, for those property owners.
Okay.
Do I second what he just said
I
on that?
can't
move?
believe we're doing this over a $20,000 fence. But if that's the way y'all want to go,
Okay. Process for removing his substitute bill.
He needs to withdraw his original motion.
Okay, he did, he did. Okay, and it was.
And Mr. Brazel asked for a second.
Second on the withdrawal.
All right, so that bill has been withdrawn.
Do we have to do favor?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, so that substitute bill has been withdrawn. So now we will vote on the actual bill number 5270, which is obviously calling for the stoplight. Okay,
Bill number 5270, an ordinance approving an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for preliminary and construction and engineering funding for improvements needed to reduce congestion on the improvement of Route N at the intersection of Route N at Hopewell Road, Duello Road. Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
yes.
Councilman Hammond?
no.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 5270 has passed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just point of clarification, so I understand, because I don't want these folks to feel like they just lost out on something. We're in the process of designing this road right now. Design is not finished. So the road is still being in the process of design, which gives us the ability to make changes to it without a change order for Mr. Baker. So we, in the process of getting that done, so we can take your suggestions and work that into the project and be able to get everything done together. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands where we're at.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we can meet with Mr. Baker and anybody else that wants to be there. We'll get the engineers in the room and we'll get all the documents and try to work through it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to bill number 5271.
Bill number 5271, an ordinance approving execution of a congestion mitigation and air quality agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission to coordinate the participation of St. Charles County in the cost of the commission's public improvement for automated traffic signal performance modules, signal optimizations on the following routes: Feisey Road, Town Square Avenue, Technology Drive, and Hanley Road.
Questions or comments on bill 5271? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5271, an ordinance approving execution of a congestion mitigation and air quality agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission to coordinate the participation of St. Charles County in the cost of the commission's public improvement for automated traffic signal performance modules, signal optimizations on the following routes: Feisey Road, Town Square Avenue, Technology Drive, and Hanley Road. Councilman Brazel?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, bill number 5271 has passed. Next bill for final passage is bill number 5272.
Bill number 5272, an ordinance amending the approving agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for improvements needed to reduce congestion on I-70 by constructing a north outer road extension and relocation of ramps from Route 94 to Zumbell Road.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5272, an ordinance amending the approving agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for improvements needed to reduce congestion on I-70 by constructing a north outer road extension and relocation of ramps from Route 94 to Zumbell Road. Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 5272 has passed. Next bill is number 5273.
Bill number 5273, an ordinance authorizing execution of documents for receipt of funds in the amount of $56,347.37 from the Secretary of State for a grant awarded to the Election Authority for an election efficiency grant to assist with election activities, systems and equipment maintenance, maintaining voter lists, and polling place accessibility, and further amending Ordinance 23-104 by providing supplemental appropriations to the Election Services Fund budget.
Okay.
Terry.
Questions, comments? Mr. Brazel?
On this particular grant, tried to find out where this money was coming from. I know it comes from the Secretary of State, but there's, the way the law changes, like Zuckerberg, for instance, when we took a bunch of money from Zuckerberg years ago for our election stuff, they changed the law, so it has to go to the Secretary of State for him to distribute. Whether or not this is Zuckerberg money, I'm not sure because we couldn't get it identified. But what I do know is when we had talked to Mr. Barr prior to budgets, we had asked what his cost was on the electronic machines and so forth, iPads and everything, for the last 3 or 4 years, I think was what we were in the tab, and he came back and said about $1 million, $1.5 million is what he told us. So we ran our own numbers and did a deep dive, and it was about $4 million, $4.5 million is what the actual cost was. And that's not even including when I was out of town last meeting, I was out of the country, and we had a consent agenda on a Friday, another $650,000 to pay for more machines and equipment through the election authority. So that's almost $5 million in election equipment that is questionable whether or not it works and it's manipulative and everything else. Now, 90% of all Republicans are against getting rid of machines. 70% of all Democrats are against getting rid of machines. Last Saturday, we had the Republican caucus in the state of Missouri. We had St. Charles County Republican caucus. There were maybe close to 1,000 people there. It was Congressional District 2 and 3. And we unanimously passed, the delegates passed, that the Republican platform is not to get rid of the machines and go back to hand ballots. That's the platform for the Missouri Republican Party in St. Charles County, and it will go to the Missouri delegates in Jeff City, then to D.C. And so me and others are on that delegation. So it's important to know, if you're claiming to be a Republican, that if you don't start following more of the platform rules, that there's potentials of being censored by the Republican Central Committee. So I will not support this. I'm not wasting any more money on these machines. If you don't know by now that they're manipulative, then you're not following the facts and reading the information that's put in front of us all over the country. If you've seen court cases they had in Georgia where a guy went to court and he manipulated one of these machines in 2 minutes, it can happen all the time. We had a family arena. We had more than enough. We had very good information to show what's been going on in other states and other places. And we had problems in our county with the election machines and the director of elections cutting all the wires in the back is what was said. Now that statement changed, but that's what was said. So I will not be giving any more money for elections machines in this county.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
I would just make one comment that I believe it was last year that the Missouri legislature passed that none of the Zuckerbucks that Mr. Brazel was talking about are allowed to be used in the state of Missouri. So the Missouri legislature made sure that those dollars are not here. So to be clear, this amount of money is coming from our Secretary of State at his office, and it is not a money laundering for Zuckerbucks, which I think is what you just implied. The state legislature made sure that it is illegal to accept those funds, just to be clear.
Mr. Holland?
Yes.
And I do believe we all received an email that the majority of this money is going to be used to improve the front office area and security measures within that front office, not purchasing all the equipment. And Director Barr, is that correct? That's what I thought. So this doesn't have anything to do with the machines. It's about improvement to the front office.
Well, if you read it, it says, here's what it says. With election security systems, equipment maintenance, equipment purchases, it says it right here. So that's all, I'm just going off what I read. So that's fine with what you're saying.
Well,
but
page 1305 specifically states the majority is going to be used for physical enhancements.
Okay.
To the building.
All right. Seeing no other comments, please call the roll on bill number 5273.
Bill number 5273, an ordinance authorizing execution of documents for receipt of funds in the amount of $56,347.37 from the Secretary of State for a grant awarded to the Election Authority for an election efficiency grant to assist with election activities, systems and equipment maintenance, maintaining voter lists and polling place accessibility, and further amending Ordinance 23-104 by providing supplemental appropriations to the Election Services Fund budget. Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
No.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 5273 has passed. Next up is bill number 5274.
Bill number 5274, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services regarding access to the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services reportable disease management systems.
Questions or comments on 5274? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5274, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services regarding access to the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services reportable disease management systems. Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes. Okay, bill number 5274 is passed. Next up is bill number 5275.
Bill number 5275, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a program services contract for local public health agency infrastructure with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services and acceptance of the grant provided thereunder.
Questions or comments on 5275?
Yeah, I've got a substitute. I'd like to make a motion to amend bill number 5275 and substitute with new Exhibit A, which removes the word equity and substitutes it for fairness and impartiality.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have a substitute bill with a change of language. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, Mr. Brazel.
I had some questions, Ms. Evers, is she here? Sarah Evers, did she not come? Okay, that was requested, but what exactly, if you guys read the program, I sent it out to most of you guys. If you read the program documentation, what exactly does this do, this program? What exactly is it for?
So, this is money that Congress put in place to be distributed to the states through their departments of health because of the lack of staff in public health and the need to sort of modernize procedures, training of new staff. We can use it for things like, and part of our intent is to look at the recycle center and see if there's a way that we can do that with fewer staff. So a lot of it's for training, on-the-job training, retention training, and trying to hold on to everything from nursing staff to how we do the kennels, the high number of animal surrenders that are going on in this point in time. So it's across the board in the department.
So when you say training and modernize, are you talking about like with JETA?
No.
If you read this, it says justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion on just the first page 7 times.
Mr. Brazel, that thing that you sent around is a 2022 brochure that they sent around about maternal and child health. This grant doesn't have anything to do with maternal and child health.
So it has nothing to do with social justice or nothing?
It doesn't have anything
But
to do
I don't
with
understand why
social
this was
justice.
linked to that, though. I mean,
It
what's...
wasn't. I don't know where that document that
It was
you got
It was a
came
letter
from.
I found on their website. So, yeah, that's right. It doesn't have anything specifically to do with this, but I think it speaks to the program in general.
I think it speaks to the program in general too, but I just don't know. Just because we're getting all this federal money, we shouldn't be taking it all, because I'm very concerned with, Mr. Baker actually sent this to me and we talked about it, and it just goes into a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with health. It's all social engineering.
And I would agree with you. It has absolutely nothing to do with our public health program in any of our 3 divisions.
That document.
That document that you want.
And if I can, if you read the substitute bill, all that language has been stricken out and fairness has been put in. I do believe Mr. Baker and County Executive Elman spent quite a bit of time with Rory as well on this, and it's a completely different layout if you've gone through that new bill.
When you talk
Mr.
about the
Chairman.
language was stricken out, you're talking about the contract? So when there's a
Everything that's
program-
written there, if you look at
So
it.
there's a program, Matt, that's
I
gonna be different
understand.
than
If
the
you
contract.
read the bill, you'll see what it says now.
So you think that the people who come work for the health department is gonna read that contract, or you think they're gonna follow the program? Which is it, Matt?
What we're voting
It's
on
gonna be the
tonight has been
program.
changed. If you'd read it, you'd understand.
You
Mr.
keep going with
Brazel,
this
that's
whole
not our
nonsense.
program.
But that's 2022. It's a different.
From the state.
It just really concerns me that we're.
No, what does it have to do with this bill here, though?
Well, I don't know why it was part of that language. I mean, I don't even know why they're putting out these kind of brochures.
I don't either, to tell you the truth, but it's not part of our program in this county in any way, shape, or form. We have never spent money. The infrastructure grant that you all approved last year, it's paying the rent so that we can deliver services in the Wentzville area.
But why wouldn't they update their information, for goodness sakes?
I can talk to you about that.
Why don't you talk to our members of our delegation
Well,
that
I
can
did.
ask?
I sent it to them too, and I.
Yeah, I'm gonna send them copies of this bill if you actually go ahead and pass it.
Mr. Hill.
Chairman.
I would just point out real quick that what Mr. Baker found and what Mr. Brazel's pointing to is a newsletter from May of 2022. It has nothing to do with our programs. It has nothing to do with our Department of Health. I don't know who wrote that newsletter, but it's on a front page of a newsletter somewhere. It doesn't even say that any of this is part of our stuff. So it's a newsletter from 2 years ago that has somehow got intermingled into our conversation and talking about pet adoption and taking care of folks who come to our health department. So I think we've got a lot of intermixing of things that are not part of the program, they're not part of any of this, but it's unnecessary.
My intent was not to intermingle these two things. My intent was to show the underlying currents of what this program, in my opinion, stood for.
So I would suggest that you take those concerns up with the Missouri legislature, who has control over the Missouri Department of Health, not the St. Charles County Council.
Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Brazel wasn't at the last meeting, just, I don't know if, Joe, if you heard what happened, but Mr. Baker raised this issue about what do they mean by equity. And the fact of the matter is, we all know equity, the term's been around a long time. And what it generally meant is fairness and appropriateness and things like that. But in this administration, starting in 2021, I guess, about the time that's went ahead and have basically changed their definition of what it means. Now, when Mr. Baker asked me about this particular thing, I told him that I was pretty sure that, personally, I believe in the old definition. I've checked with Sarah, and our people have been interpreting that word when they see it in the way they've interpreted it for the last 50 years. I told him I was pretty sure the governor agreed with us, and in my letter, which I sent you today, which I will send to the governor, I basically said, hey, I'm pretty sure you agree with this, but you're only going to be around for another. So we want to make sure that this equity that is in there, and Rory found several places where the word is used, and we just substituted the definition of equity instead of the word equity. Okay? Now, this is not some sort of conspiracy theory of all this stuff about DEI. It's a real serious policy issue. And of course, I happen to disagree with it. I think if most of you do as well. So, yeah, if the legislature or if the department sends this back and says, we can't accept this, we got to have that language in here, then I think we do really need to have a more serious debate about whether we want to take this money. But
So
I'm
this-
hopeful that we can, if we send it to them with Mr. Baker's changes, that the governor will just sign it, we'll have a deal, we'll get our money, and we'll go on.
All right. I believe right now we are going to be voting on the substitute bill introduced by Mr. Baker that we approved, which includes the changes from the word equity to the word fairness. Okay? All right, so please call the roll.
Substitute Bill 5275, an ordinance authorizing the county executive or his designee to execute a program services contract for local public health agency infrastructure with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services and acceptance of the grant provided thereunder. Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
No.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes. Okay. Bill number 5275 is passed. The last bill for final passage is 5276.
Bill number 5276, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget, adopted as ordinance 23-104 by providing supplemental revenues of $125,000 and appropriations of $29,000 to the Special Revenue Fund 254, Family Services and Justice.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5276, an ordinance amending the 2024 budget adopted as ordinance 23-104 by providing supplemental revenues of $125,000 and appropriations of $29,000 to the Special Revenue Fund 254, Family Services and Justice. Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Baker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Brazel?
Yes.
Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Okay, bill number 5276 is passed. Now we have bills for introduction, beginning with bill number 5277.
Bill number 5277, requested by John Lyon, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance vacating a drainage easement on Wildflower Estate Common Ground B.
Questions or comments on this particular bill? Seeing none, we move on to bill number 5278.
Bill number 5278, requested by John Lyon, sponsored by Joe Brazel. An ordinance vacating a drainage easement on Wildflower Estate Common Ground C.
Questions or comments on 5278? Seeing none, we move on to bill number 5279 for introduction.
Bill number 5279, requested by Amanda Brower, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance approving execution of a congestion mitigation and air quality agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission to coordinate the participation of St. Charles County and the cost of the commission's public improvement for automated traffic signal performance modules, signal optimizations on various county roads.
Questions or comments on 5279? Okay, seeing none, that concludes bills for introduction. Any announcements or miscellaneous?
I got an announcement, Terry.
Yes.
This Saturday is the Defiance St. Patty's Day Parade and Festival. We have a 5K run at 10, and actually it's going to be a big event. We got about 120 runners. We got a lot this year, and then we have the parade at 12, and it'll be a good event. We have a beer tent, we have vendors, food trucks, bounce houses for the kids, face painting in Town Square there by the post office. So it's supposed to be 65 and sunny, so it's gonna be a beautiful day. So come on out, and then you got Sunday is the St. Charles, St. Patty's Day Parade down in St. Charles, which would be good. And so a lot to do this weekend. Go Irish.
Any other announcements or miscellaneous? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Sorry.
For Wednesday, yeah.